I'm a trained professional.
Trained professional here with his boy Lundo. Talofa, my people. All right, we are here in this beautiful...
A Moroccan paradise.
That's awesome. Which is an amazing place. There's some cool music back here. I feel like I'm in Europe or Northern Africa, I guess would be more appropriate. But friends, this is my buddy, Dave Coe, sweet man, who is a, man, if I had to label him, he is a awesome dude who also happens to be a dad, an awesome fundraiser for our local charities here in Redondo Beach, a master of ceremonies for the best party of the year on our street called the Crawfish Boil. More on that to come. He also happens to be an amazing realtor and a entrepreneur. I call him a mountain climber, but he likes to hike. And also he is what I would like to call just someone who's out constantly in our community and in his industries, making things happen. So on the Lundo Trail, we come across some crazy people, and some of them just happen to be down the street from my house. So with that being said,
and your neighbor.
And my neighbor. I forgot about that. Another very important title, because I also like to sneak over to his house and have some beer every once in a while. My brother. Wow, gross. I haven't seen these in a while. Anywho, Dave, enough of Lundo. Tell me about you, but I really want to know about the journey. It's big on the Lundo Trail. Tell us about your journey. And I know, New Orleans, Orange County, LA. Take it away, brother. Just let us have it. What do you got?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the trail, even though the trail didn't leave the block, right? Sometimes the trails are local. Yeah, actually, it's funny. The reason I'm out here is because when my dad, in the mid-'60s, actually probably the early '60s, went to basic training in Camp Pendleton.
Okay.
And, back in the day, getting from Camp Pendleton to New Orleans was a long way to go. So he had a buddy of his that lived in Manhattan Beach.
Oh, wow.
So whenever they would get like a 3-day weekend, that's not enough time to get back to California. So he would go stay with his buddy in Manhattan Beach.
Oh, wow.
I always thought Southern California was so exotic and so cool. So fast forward, they have a family. I'm in 7th grade. And my mom and dad were just looking for a change. This was, in the late 70s, there was the oil embargo happening. My dad worked in the car industry. Louisiana's whole economy was based on oil. And when the oil embargo and everything started happening through there, all of a sudden it was harder and harder to make a living. Wow. So my dad had someone who had worked at his dealership that moved out to Southern California and said, if you ever want a job, you call me up. So he calls him up on Wednesday. On Friday, he flies him out to Thousand Oaks, and by Monday, he had a new job out in Southern California.
Wow, that's amazing.
We moved out a few months later, and it ended up where actually my dad worked in Cerritos Auto Mall.
Oh, no way.
So, so we moved out here in 7th grade, and I've been, while I hated it at first, it took me about 6 months before I really found something about Southern California. For me, it was an 8th grade girl that I fell in love with. And right. And I felt sorry because her friend, her younger brother, was a friend of mine, and I think I just hung out with him just because I wanted to hang out with her. But we used to take the bus and go down to the beach at Huntington Beach, and we'd go boogie boarding, and
very cool.
All of a sudden, California opened up for me, and
awesome.
I've been out here pretty much ever since.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So your dad was an amazing man, and I always, thought highly of Walt. I sat with
his
him a
name
few
may
times.
come up a couple times on this.
Yes, for sure. Just a great man. So how did you get from Orange County to LA? And not that that's, crazy, but a lot of us here who grew up in Southern California, like, you grew up in Orange County, you tend to stay there, and vice versa. And I got friends in the Valley I rarely see unless we go to San Diego.
Right, right. The Orange Curtain.
The Orange Curtain.
Hardly penetrate it.
Yeah. So how'd you end up here?
So So I went to school at Santa Barbara for a year, and then transferred back to Cal State Fullerton, which is where I met Brooke.
Okay.
It was my third junior year. I think it was probably her, her first junior year.
I had a few of those.
Yeah. And I was a communications major with a degree in advertising.
Okay.
So part of to graduate, you actually had to have an internship. So I started applying for internships, and I actually got accepted to an internship at Chiat Day, which is one of the most popular ad agencies of all time. I went my first day, and I was working like in a carnival ride. I thought this was the coolest place. And on day 2, they came and said, "Hey, listen, we had to cut back our interns, and since you were the last guy in, you're the first guy out. You're out." And I'm like, "Wait a minute! Like, I need this to graduate, right?" So I had a counselor at the time, and he hooked me up with this ad agency in El Segundo called Team One, which was a division of Saatchi & Saatchi.
Right.
And I was like, all right, not as sexy, but I actually was commuting back and forth. And then sure enough, 3 months afterwards, I graduated and they offered me a position. So at that point in time, we had to move into LA County because that commute was killing us. So we rented a house. Brooke and I were dating at the time.
Okay.
So we rented a house right across from TRW on Manhattan Beach Boulevard.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Which whenever we drive up, we always point to where our old apartment used to be. It's where we lived when we got married. So my job got me out of Orange County into LA County. But being from Louisiana, when we moved out here, the only reason we moved to Orange County was because Walt got the job in Cerritos.
Yeah.
But whenever we would go out and do things, we'd go to Hollywood. We'd go we'd go up to Mount Wilson. We'd go do these things. I remember my sister had a friend, and we took her on a tour once to Hollywood Boulevard. She was from Southern California, and she had never been to Hollywood before, right?
Which I don't think is very uncommon. I think it's a lot of people who just, that seems to them, literally a million miles away when it's really only, 30, 40 miles away.
And we had a lot of people like that, right? So, I was a huge Dodger fan growing up because the Dodgers were on television in the 70s. So I was always a Dodger fan. So I used to love going to Dodger games. Walt's company actually had, remember the Forum, they used to have the Forum seats.
Oh, yeah.
They had two Forum seat tickets.
Oh, wow.
So we used to go see the Kings and the Lakers. So I used to love coming into LA anyway. And then, once I got to the South Bay, I was just hooked, man. I was done. And, we've been, I got transferred to Atlanta for a few years, but we came back here. Actually bought this house when we got transferred back, and we'll never sell this house. I mean, at some point, I'm sure we'll give it to the kids and they'll do it, but I'm not sure we're going to live here always, forever, but we're going to always keep this house.
Awesome.
We love this block. We have great neighbors.
Yeah, we do. Well, it's great. Moving to the street was just one of the best things that ever happened to our family, for sure.
Drink to that, man.
Yeah, drink to that.
Yeah.
So tell me, because I mean, I'm sure you told me over beers before, but this has happened to a lot of my friends who have become realtors. They were, successful and happy in their industry that they were in, but there was either an event or, something triggered them, or they've always wanted to be going to real estate. So tell me how your transition, like many others, and a lot of people in our neighborhood are in that industry now. So tell me your particular journey and how you became a realtor, and tell me what you're doing now.
So we went to Spain. So we were, I was working, actually later, fast forward, right? I actually ended up working for Chiat Day again.
Okay.
So that was my last job in corporate America. I was the national account director for Infinity Regional, which back in the early '90s, Nissan moved to Tennessee, which means my job basically moved to Tennessee as well.
Okay.
So I used to commute. On Monday, I'd fly to Chicago, and then on Wednesday, I'd fly to Nashville, and on Thursday, I'd fly home. And the next week, I'd fly to New York, then Nashville, then home. And the next week, I'd fly to Atlanta, then Nashville, at home. I was always on the road. I was always traveling. Yeah. Brooke also she worked for an ad agency at the time, and we were just exhausted, right? Yeah. We were just so tired of everything. We took a trip to Spain, and actually without the kids, the boys were like 5 and 3 at the time. Okay. And we had issues getting there. Our flight got delayed. We finally got into the hotel like around 10 a.m. on whatever day it was, and we decided to just take a nap before we went out. And we woke up. It was 3 a.m. the next morning. We had literally slept for almost 20 hours. We were just so exhausted, right, from life and from everything else. And I remember 6 a.m., 7 a.m. We were hungry. We hadn't eaten anything yet. We start walking around Madrid. If you've ever been to Madrid, nothing is happening. Everyone just went to sleep at 6 a.m. in Madrid, let alone having a coffee shop that's open or getting breakfast. And we were just walking around like, you know what, we can't do this anymore. Like we need to change our life. We just can't continue to live on this, on this treadmill. Traveling's unhealthy. My boys are starting to do cool things, and I was never around. So we went back, and when we lived in Atlanta, we actually had bought our first house. It was one of the draws of going to Atlanta, and we spent all of our time fixing up this old 1920s house. And we bought it for $125,000, and then 4 years later, we sold it for almost $400,000. And part of that was Atlanta was the Olympics were in '96. There was kind of this resurgence happening, so there was this natural market appreciation that was going on, and part of it was all the work we had done on this house. And we sold that house, and we bought this house out here, and we just thought real estate was easy. Right. So we decided to fix and flip, and like literally in Madrid, I had taken an envelope and I penciled in my first pro forma on the back of an envelope on what this would look like. And by the time we got to Barcelona, we had kind of made up our mind that we were going to get into real estate and start fixing and flipping houses. So as I was flying back and forth to Nashville, when we got back, I was actually studying for my real estate license. I never wanted to be a realtor. I just wanted to have my real estate license to do my deals, to sell and buy my own deals. And then 6 months later, we got a bunch of money together and we bought our first house to fix and flip. And we both put in our notices, and all of a sudden we were self-employed entrepreneurs. And this was 2007. Which was actually a good year to get started. We did well for a year and a half. And then 2008 came along, and we got our teeth kicked in for a few years. So because of that, all of a sudden fixing and flipping wasn't as adventurous as we thought it was, but I started using my my real estate license and doing other transactions for other people. And then in around 2009, 2010, I joined Keller Williams and started realizing that actually being a realtor wasn't something that was slimy, right? There was an actual, it was a great way to earn a living and build a business. The idea of being self-employed, being an entrepreneur, I never thought I'd be good at that. But the more I got into it, having the freedom, when I was helping Infinity sell, as many FXs as they could. I didn't find that as fulfilling, but when I was helping a young family buy their first house, I got so much joy and pleasure out of that. And then over the years, I started getting more involved in the investing part of it, which is still a big part of my current role that I do right now. So, I mean, part of it was, just really wanting to coach my kids, which, the other day, Trey came to me with a stack of his football photos, his team photos.
Oh, awesome.
12 of them, right? And he's like, Dad, I'm cleaning up my room. I have all these photos of me and my team. I don't want them anymore. Do you? And I started looking through all of his photos, and in every one of those photos, I was in one of those photos as a coach.
Amazing.
And I'm like, bro, there's no way you're throwing these. These aren't your team photos. These are my team photos, right?
I love it.
So I still have them on my desk, and
great.
the fact that I was able to be a part of not just his teams, but St. John's teams, and be a part of all that stuff, we had some difficult financial years in 2009, 2010.
We all did on the street.
We all did, right? But being able to be a stay-at-home dad and be a part of that part of my kid's life is irreplaceable.
I love it, brother. Love it. I mean, that's just one of those. When you talk to people about their journey and their stories, there's this component to it that you kind of know and remember, but then when you hear it again, it's especially that part. Because we were here when the kids were all similar ages, so and luckily I was able to do a lot of coaching and Not so good at AYSO, but basketball and softball a little bit better. But
I mean,
that's amazing.
People always ask me, do I miss it? I don't miss it at all, but I wouldn't trade it in for anything. At the time, like after practice for Trey, right? He used to love going to Chipotle, and no one else in the family liked Chipotle but me and him, right? So going after practice to get cheese quesadillas was so special. And for Sinjin, man, he loved donuts, right? Like having those cool little moments where I could, have those times with just the kids, with just me, and I always made the deal I had with them is that I will coach your team, but only if you are the best player on the field. Now, I don't mean you have to be the best athlete on the field, but you have to be the best teammate on the field.
Awesome.
You need to hustle, right? You don't need to talk back to your coaches. You do what you're told. I need you to be an example of what it means to be on this team. And they always were fantastic at that.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, great kids, great young men now. They got like beards and stuff.
I know,
so
right?
It's funny to see.
Taller than you, taller than me.
Unbelievable. Well, Dave, and this amazing story now. I mean, the corporate stuff and the family moving, but I love seeing you and your wife doing all this hiking, and because I do some hiking with my friends, but we kind of go over by backside Trump and Terranea. But like you guys are going like serious hikes. I mean, how long can you keep this up, brother? And then also, we're coming up on some time here, but like, what's next for you guys? You and your wife, or you and your business ventures? I mean, are you gonna try to put go to the highest elevation in the world to do a real estate deal? Is that like, can we get a world record of that?
Maybe. I like that idea.
Or put a bar where Lundo has to ride his bike up there, or I could get it helicoptered in. But like, what's next for you guys? And because I mean, I think your story is amazing, your journey is awesome, but I feel like you got a long way to go. So
it's a lot of mountains we haven't climbed.
Yes.
So we always like to hike. We always like to walk. Hiking. We became hikers during COVID, right? When COVID first hit, I'm just a outgoing person, right? I need to be out. I can't be inside. So we used to just walk. I would just go out and walk and be on the phone. And then on weekends, we got tired of walking around and making fun of all the neighbors, all their ugly paint choices. So we used to just go to different neighbors. We'd drive up to PV and we'd go walk around there. We went to Hancock Park. We walked around there. We went to...
So you were like just like stalkers.
We just had to be outside. We had to be moving, right?
So you're out like Judge Judy, everyone's house. Huh?
Totally. Looking for ideas on what to do and looking for ideas on what not to do, right? So we eventually said, we should go for a hike. We were going up to visit some friends in Idaho. So we did a hike that we had done many times before with some friends and when the kids were little. But all of a sudden, like, we realized, okay, wait a minute, because during COVID, right, the advice everyone was giving is, look, even though you don't need to be in crowds, you need to be outside, right? You got to get some exercise, right? You got to get in nature, right? You've got to be able to disconnect. Well, hiking did all of those things all at one time. So we started doing hikes, and in 2021, we actually set a goal to do 50 hikes in a year.
Wow.
So that year, we actually did 51 hikes. Our last hike was a 20-mile hike through San Francisco. We went from what was the old football stadium?
Kezar?
No, the football stadium used to be down. It's all the way on the...
Candlestick Park?
Where Candlestick Park is. We walked all the way up to Golden Gate State Park. It was a 20-mile hike.
Yeah.
That was our last hike of the year. So that year, we did 51 hikes. We did 602 miles of hiking in the year, and it was 127,000 feet of vertical gain.
Holy heck!
Right, so that's we just kind of like, it's just like an addiction now. We hiked yesterday, right? We've got hikes planned, and as far as what's our journey moving forward. We're building out our life, and through building out passive income. Even this house, we can envision a time where we're going to rent the house out for 3 or 4 months at a time, and we're going to go on these hiking treks, right? Where we can just go hike. We're actually going to Italy later this year. We're going to go hike in the Dolomites.
Wow.
We just booked a trip for July 4th in southern Utah. We're going to go to Bryce and spend a week around Bryce Canyon.
Oh, yeah, it's nice.
So, we love it. It's a great way to travel. It's we are not backpackers, right? Because we don't want to, sleep in the dirt and have to, pee in the woods.
Yep.
We are Airbnb backpackers, right? So we get an Airbnb, and then we go do these crazy day hikes, and then we come back and we shower and we drink wine and we order Italian food and we get up and we do it the next day.
Wow.
So we're going to keep doing that.
I love it, brother. Well, I'll tell you, man, love your style, love your family. We were very lucky to move on the street with you and some of these other amazing people in this neighborhood. And the parties in this neighborhood are going to be legendary, and our children are going to remember them, how cool their parents were. So that I'll take, and you're a big part of that, being the street organizer, and so I appreciate that. But
well, actually, one thing to add to that, because we had the crawfish boil last
back
week.
to the crawfish boil. That's it.
We'll leave with the crawfish boil story.
There we go.
So my dad Walt, we used to do these big block, but we still do a July 4th block party. And 14 years ago, a tradition in New Orleans, crawfish season runs February through Labor Day, but really Memorial Day is when the crawfish are like at their peak, right? So the tradition to kick off summer in New Orleans is to do a crawfish boil. So as a kid growing up, every Memorial Day weekend, we would have some kind of crawfish boil, right? Family getting together, sitting around. So we had our first crawfish boil 14 years ago. We went to the park. It wasn't a block party. And we got a sack of crawfish, which is 40 pounds. I think we ate like maybe 25 of them, and we came back here and peeled 15 pounds of crawfish that night because we didn't eat them. And fast forward now, 14 years later, we just had our 14th annual crawfish boil. We went through 5 sacks of crawfish, which is 200 pounds. There were 5 kegs of beer consumed. We had a beer sponsor, we had a music sponsor, we had 2 live bands, including my son Trey's band. Black Rain had a reunion.
It was amazing.
And then we raised money. About 6-7 years ago, we used to ask everyone to bring a donation to help cover the cost of the boil. But at my real estate company, I decided to use that to pay for the event. And instead of asking people to pay for the event, I asked them to make a donation to the Redondo Beach Ed Foundation, which is the local schools that I've been a part of for many years. So this year we raised $3,400 for the local schools, which puts our total up right around $25,000 over the last 6 or 7 years that we've been doing this.
That's amazing. Oh.
And besides having all of us here, we always have people that just come in from other blocks to hear the live music. And they're like, "Is it okay?" I'm like, "Absolutely. Just make a donation."
There's a guy who brings his thing of gumbo every year, and I have no idea where this guy
John
comes from.
Moyer.
It's amazing. It's really good.
He makes fantastic gumbo.
Who's this random dude coming with some gumbo?
Yeah.
It's really good.
Well, people ask you like, "Wow, you have such an amazing block that you guys do this," and I'm like, "No. We don't have an amazing block. We've got a bunch of amazing people that live on this block, right?
And attract
you
other
included,
people to
right?
come.
And doing a block party isn't something that happens because of your street. Doing a block party happens because of the people that live on the street, right?
Right.
And as a neighborhood, we're all accustomed to doing these types of things, and we're all friends, and our kids grew up together. So, I was just telling them, look, you don't have to come be a part of our block. You're welcome, but go do this on your block. Go be the person that starts a block party on your block, because those are the memories that your kids will never forget. And probably even though our kids are grown, the idea of watching them as adults still enjoying it and having memories growing up of these block parties, I think is really important.
I love it, brother. Well, hey, man, unbelievable. Just the crawfish boil alone. Some people get take the whole year off, they kicked ass. You're doing it. That's just one thing that I know that you're doing, and I appreciate it. It's also a great example, like you just said, other people, they should tie in their fun with some fundraising. Put the fun in fundraising, as someone told me one time. I love that you do it. You set a great example, and you're just a great guy, great family. So I appreciate spending time with your boy Lundo. I hope my friends appreciate the story of the journey of my man Dave here. We're gonna end it with a quick cheers, brother.
And
Yes, to
actually,
you.
cheers to you. And one last thing is that, you know, charity is something that I built my business on as well. So we donate 3% back of all of our real estate sales back to charity. And every person on my team has their own charity. So we're sponsoring everything from pets to veterans to homelessness
Hey,
to
people, he's always taking care of business, this guy. I love it.
Listen, I think doing well
Yeah.
and doing good is central to my brand. So if I can leave one thing with your audience,
Hey
it's
man,
that.
your brand is amazing, and that just made it even more amazing to me. You know, I try to do similar things. You know, you've inspired me to do a little bit more fundraising on some of my part in. Yeah, I mean, I need funds to pay for the beer, but also, you know, our volleyball tournament every summer raises a lot of money. You know, we're talking to other people about doing, you know, fundraisers for wiffle ball,
Fundraising?
or pickleball.
Let's
Exactly,
do it, man.
whatever it
Let's
takes.
have fun and do some good
Yeah,
along
well,
the way.
let's go out and be consultants for some of these other
That's
our
it.
friends that like to party.
I love it.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Thanks for stopping by. We are out.